an interesting development, to put it mildly.
Fascinating. I'd say it's like a who's who of spooks and crooks and all kinds of stuff. Fascinating. You mentioned Quarterly was working for Roy Radin. Now that's fascinating because, especially with this whole LSD background connection, because the young girl that was raped on there, Melanie Holler, the sweat hog from Welcome Back, Kotter, today is living with some kind of LSD guru type guy. I've tried to contact her to come on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And also, we've talked in the past on this show. People should go back and look up the archives on Spreaker.com. We talked about Roy Cohen's connection to the Process Church, and obviously Roy Radin is up to his neck in the Process people over there. Fascinating stuff. But one more thing, too, I want to throw into. You mentioned the Astor family. Did you know that the Astor Hotel in Manhattan...
The Waldorf Astoria, you mean?
No, the Astor Hotel.
Okay.
Because my dad worked there, and so did my uncle. And they brought in, after the Cuban Revolution, all the anti-Castro Cubans came up there and got jobs at the Astor Hotel. All those guys that were later on Bay of Pigs guys. Fascinating stuff, my friend. Let's take a little commercial break. We are with Stephen Snyder, better known as Recluse, from the VISUP View blogspot.com. His book out right now. Is this book out right now? We can go to Amazon, get this book tonight?
Actually, the PDF will be out on Friday, and the physical copies will be available on Amazon by April 10th, which is the next Friday.
Okay, so right around the corner. Okay, and this won't be airing for a few days anyway. Strange Tales of Parapolitical. And if you're into this kind of stuff, this is an encyclopedia of knowledge. I hope you got it all into the book, because this is great stuff.
Oh, yeah. And we're only up to the Mellon family, too. We haven't even talked about the other two essays yet.
Well, we'll have you come back. The Farm Podcast, you can find every weekend. There's new content going up there, thefarmpodcast.com. We'll be right back with more of Stephen Snyder, the great recluse, VISUPblogspot.com after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to sing a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. The show's coming to you from the aquadam.net studios in Tampa Bay, Florida. You can give them a call over at 707-764-2119 if you want to save your property from rising floodwaters. You call aquadam.net. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you, get a good deal. We're here today with Stephen Snyder, who's better known as the Recluse. VISUP, viewblog.com. The book is called Strange Tales of the Parapolitical, and his podcast, weekly podcast, and you get to listen to that voice there, no stuttering like the old Opera Report, thefarmpodcast.com. Stephen, the second portion here is something about you're expanding on the work of Peter Levenda. We mentioned him before. So what is this Colonia... I can't even pronounce it.
Colonia Dignidad.
Dignidad. Okay. See, I wouldn't even put a word like that in my book because I don't have to say it one day. But tell us, what is going on with that?
Well, I mean, it's definitely an interesting story. And, part of my reason for even doing the colony in the first place was I actually wanted to provide, another English language account that really wasn't that dependent on Levenda as a source for it. And I was really very proud of that. I mean, I think it's the longest account of the colony that's been written in English up to this point, as far as I'm aware of. But essentially, Colonia Dignidad, the colony of dignity, had been set up around the late 50s, early 1960s by a guy named Paul Schaefer, who was a quote-unquote former Nazi. And it was pretty much a full-blown cult that had been set up in Chile. It was fully functional by about 62, 63. They had an enormous compound in the south. They had basically a group of individuals there, usually never more than 200 or so, that, all accounts, they were described as just being robots, totally brainwashed. They worked 14-hour days. They wore clothing that was modeled after, I believe, what peasants wore in 19th century Bavaria or something like that. Were kept on very limited rations and so on and so forth. The sexes were divided from one another. Marriage was discouraged. Obviously, any kind of sexual activity was badly discouraged, and so on and so forth. Aside from Herr Schaefer, who, among other things, was also an arch child rapist. He had abused just literally dozens and dozens of children over the years. Some of them had been flown from Germany to Chile, where he could indulge in his appetites with them there, and then some had apparently just been abducted from the countryside around the compound for the colony. I think when he was finally arrested in, 2006 or something like that, there were just literally dozens and dozens of charges that were brought against him for just years of pedophilia that he had been conducting there. It was just really horrendous on any number of levels. But that wasn't the only revolting thing going on at the colony, unfortunately. Essentially, it had been set up with a full-blown torture facility and internment camp. There were just, miles of underground tunnels that ran underneath it. And it really came into its own, so to speak, when Pinochet took over with the coup in 1973 on September 11th, ironically or not. And yes, from there on, the colony essentially was where a lot of political prisoners, so to speak, were disappeared to for re-education. If that didn't stick, they also found a mass grave on the colony grounds as well. So it seems like that was where at least some of the political descendants ended up at eventually. And yeah, I mean, it was just remarkable, some of the stuff that went on there. I mean, they could apparently seal people in just chambers that were almost coffin-like, kind of shades of the sensory deprivation stuff that we'd later do here. They would be hooked up to, instruments that would allow them to administer electroshock to them. They would be kept in there just isolated from people for days and days. Usually with the only sounds they heard would be the music of Wagner, which were played in the background. And then, of course, there were the use of the Doberman. Apparently there were times when they were used to maul at the genitals of prisoners who were being kept there, that kind of thing. So it was a very just horrendous place on a lot of levels. Any number of former Nazis had spent time there over the years. Probably the most notorious was Joseph Mengele, the so-called Angel of Death. Apparently he had made good use of the colony's good offices on his way to Paraguay or wherever it was he ended up at eventually. So just a lot of that kind of thing going on there. And then, of course, later it became a major node in what was referred to as Operation Condor, which had been established by the different intelligence services of the Southern Cone, Chile, Argentina, all those places. And essentially it was a way for them to hunt down their own, internal guerrillas when they crossed the borders into other neighboring countries. Now, essentially, an Argentinian rebel could be, apprehended in Paraguay, and then he could be flown off to Chile, where he would be a guest of the colony, where they would ascertain what he knew, try to help him see the errors of his ways, that type of thing, before he was disappeared forever, usually. So just lots of crazy stuff was going on there. And there's even some indication that they even had some kind of chemical, biological weapon facility set up there as well. It's just really incredible in a lot of ways, all of the insane stuff that was going on at this one kind of obscure compound in Chile in the 1970s.
You got the tunnels, you got the pedophilia, the Nazis. Any indications of occult activity, Satanism?
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of reports, and this is from Lavenda, but I mean, there were indications that they did practice unusual festivals, usually related to the equinoxes and the solstices and that type of thing. But, I mean, nominally it was a Protestant cult, though. There wasn't really any superficial elements of esoteric or occult doctrine, but I mean, that's to be expected. I've really, in looking at a lot of this stuff, there seems to be a lot of evidence that they usually use kind of a Christian framework as a surface, cover surface, so to speak. But curiously, though, there were potentially ties to Opus Dei, which is something I'm going to get into in the book. And of course, that's the really fanatical Catholic order. It gained a lot of infamy in the early noughts because of the Da Vinci Code and what have you. But Opus Dei, I mean, they were used very extensively by the U.S. intelligence community with a lot of the Gladio stuff that was being implemented in Western Europe. And they also turn up a lot in the pedophile rings associated with the Dutroux affair in Belgium and what have you. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff associated with Opus Dei. So I definitely found that to be rather ominous, that they did have these ties to the colony when you kind of look on at some of the allegations about them in Europe at the same time.
What do you make of this seeming overlap with again, the occult, the pedophiles, the tunnels, and torture, and the intelligence communities? Is there an intelligence community for any country on the planet that's not delving into this kind of stuff?
It doesn't really seem like it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's hard to tell, obviously, with the Soviet services and what have you. There were a lot of allegations that they were big into this kind of stuff. I've never seen anything really definitive, but I mean, certainly, you can see them looking in on what was going on with Profumo and what have you. Of course, you had guys like Anthony Blunt, the rather infamous Soviet double agent that had just ravaged British intelligence services for years. I mean, he was tied up in all of this as well. But certainly within the West, though, I mean, yeah, and any of the kind of affiliate intelligence services that are pawns. I mean, yes, this is just basically a reoccurring theme over and over again, sadly.
And do you think it's because they've found some kind of they found that the occult practices are benefiting them?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, in terms of like just I mean, the pedophile rings and that type of thing, obviously, I mean, the pedophilia in and of itself would be for blackmail purposes. And I mean, I do think that there are serious believers in some of these occult doctrines. But I mean, in, the research I've been doing for the Epstein book,